us for another episode of the Gamecast. I am one of your hosts, Kenny, and with me is Teresa.
Hello, everyone.
And today we're going to have a pretty cool show based all around fights, if you can't tell by the title. Uh, but before we get into that, we kind of want to speak about the week and what's been happening. For me, there's been some good stuff personally. Uh, there was a bit of a low point with if you follow EGM now, the website, they recently or not too long ago announced that they weren't be able to afford to pay freelancers anymore because of this whole Corona thing, and a lot of us were working on big stories, big features because the way they did it this past year was every week or so, I believe, or every few days, they would have a new feature on the front page. And their website was unique in that they would always have a new feature. Whereas other websites, gaming sites, would have mostly news and reviews, previews, those sort of things. They were they were pushing features and interesting stories uh, about, video games. But like literally every week, there would be something else on the front page. And so I had last year I had gotten an article on the front page there, and so I was writing another one, and this was a pretty decent story in terms of idea. Like what I'm talking about, I don't think many has covered as of yet, and so I was kind of bummed a little bit, not just for me, but for all the people who had spent months or whatever writing stories who wouldn't be able to post them. However, another site or a few other sites were picking up some of the EGM writers or the freelancers, I should say, not EGM. They're still working and such. They're not out of a job, but they just can't pay freelancers. And so a couple of websites kind of reached out and was like, hey, even if we can't necessarily afford what they were going to pay, we would like to, pitch your story to us and we'll see if we have room. One of the websites, the one that actually took my story, um, they actually they fundraised money to be able to pay as many EGM writers as possible, which was I think is pretty sweet. They
Mhm.
got their fans and everything to kind of donate money. They had their own money. The website is called Uppercut Crit, and they had their own money, but then they also asked their fans, and so not just their fans gave money, but other writers from other websites also gave money to help
Wow,
everyone out. And
that's
so
so
it's
nice.
yeah, it was pretty awesome. And so um, I'm gonna be working, finishing that up for them. So that's been great. Also, on the flip side, in terms of news that's not personal, there's a bunch of stuff that came out gaming related. Some good, some bad, and some kind of odd.
Mm.
Um, so good news, Ubisoft revealed Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which
Mhm.
looks, well, at least from the cutscene trailer that they showed, looks pretty cool. It's interesting. Uh, in that they're going totally in a different way in terms of, even though that the characters end up back in London or England, they're going a different route with Vikings and such. And you play as a character who can be male or female. You can customize them, different hair, tattoos, war paint, that sort of thing. And their job or their role is to lead their clan of Norsemen across the North Sea over to England because there's too much fighting going on where they live. Lack of resources, that sort of thing. They kind of want to relocate. Unfortunately, King Alfred and the Saxons don't really like them being there. They see them as, heathens and mongrels and whatnot. And there's this propaganda to kind of like uh, kind of bash them to the people because the king is afraid that they'll, usurp his throne. And that's not actually, I mean, from the trailer we saw, that's not actually what they're trying to do. They're just
Yeah,
trying to
they just
find a
want a
place to live.
farming land. That's it. They just want a farm.
Exactly, and because there's a part in the if you haven't seen the trailer, definitely check it out. It's on our website, unitedforgaming.com. But if you look at the trailer, you show them like when they fight, it shows them going through a village and a mother and child are running away, and the main character kind of stops his men from attacking them to let the women and children free, like flee. If they were just crazy, Viking raiders coming to take over the land, they would have killed everyone. Excuse me. Uh,
Because
It is
that's what
that
they
was
were doing, which is why King Alfred didn't like him in the first place.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and so very interesting. And with the Assassin's Creed series, they always sprinkle in, or I should say, their stories based on true events that they kind of weave a non-true or a fictional story within that. So there's
Mhm.
certain things that actually did happen during this time that are really interesting, and so that was cool. That they announced that they were going to be revealing it a few days ago, and then they showed the trailer as well as let everyone know that it's coming out this year. It's going to be on the Xbox One, the PS4, the PS5, the Xbox Series X, and PC. They also noted that it's going to be exclusive to the Epic Game Store or the Ubisoft Game Store. So
Hmm.
Steam players are kind of out of for a bit. I don't know when they're going to get it. I know they're eventually going to get it in some form or fashion, but right now it's going to be, or I should say later this year, it's going to be on Epic and Ubisoft only. If you didn't know, Epic has been doing this for a while now with their game store to kind of have some leverage over Steam, having somewhat of a monopoly. And the developers are keen on this because Epic guarantees them a certain amount of money back uh, on their investment.
Hmm.
So even if the game doesn't sell, they kind of break even, which is a huge thing. Not so much for AAA developers like Ubisoft, especially for a huge series like Assassin's Creed, but that's one of the reasons why this exclusive stuff is kind of happening. It's not necessarily just to kind of push Steam out of the way. It's also to kind of help some of the developers who or publishers who need that help. So yeah, kind of good and bad depending on if you're beholden to Steam, but it's also coming to the console. So we will be covering that as more information rolls out. So definitely check that out. Um, some of the bad information. So there's been news about the work environment over at Naughty Dog. They're developing The Last of Us Part 2 in terms of crunch. This is something we talked about before, where these
Yeah.
big games, they force people to work and work and work and work and work and work. Or if they don't force, they kind of super incentivize them to do so, and it's draining. It's really bad. I'm not going to go into all of what crunch is, but it's bad. And apparently, now this isn't super official, although some websites, they have contacts and such within the gaming industry that don't want to be known. But the word on the street is that someone felt a way about all the crunch and released The Last of Us 2 script, or like the plot.
Ooh.
So it's out there. The entire plot is out there. And because of that, Sony was forced to push the release date of the game up because they were pushed it back for logistic reasons in terms of Corona not being able to sell physical copies, that sort of thing. But then also just to kind of make sure that the game is solid. And now they have to push it up. So the new release date is actually June 19th.
Oh,
That's when the game.
Juneteenth.
Yep. That's when the game is going to be coming out, and that also means that they moved Ghosts of Tsushima. I can't say the name. Sorry. Uh, their Ghost game, the samurai game, to July 17th. They
Mm.
had to move that out of June. So some stuff has been shaken up. Unfortunately for the developers still working there, that's their hard work. Even though, you know, I get why someone would be upset and why they would do such a thing, but I don't understand them hurting their team because if the game, I don't think it's not going to sell, mind you. But if the game didn't sell because people were like, "You kind of spoiled it for me," that hurts the people who spent all that time crunching. Like that,
Yeah.
you're not hurting the people who you need to hurt, and you shouldn't hurt anyone. But in terms of like their pockets or whatever the case may be, you're not hurting the right people. And so it's kind of a trashy move. And so in light of that, the game is getting moved up, but there's all this blowback that's been happening because of it. And people are fighting on Twitter in terms of and social media about who was right, who was wrong. Some people aren't going to buy the game out of principle of the crunch anyways. Some people were like, we're not going to buy it because we basically saw the whole plot. So that's rough. That's real, that's kind of messed up.
Yeah.
And the person who did it is going to get outed. It's just going to happen, and they're not going to be able to work in game development ever. No big company is going to, even if the company isn't crunching, none of them are going to want to work with you because you kind of you leaked something huge. I mean, they've been
Yeah.
working on this for multiple years. Like, I don't I don't know who benefits from that, but
Who knows? They might get a spot on some talk show, like you never, anyway, you never know. Somebody who does
man,
something bad sometimes ends, like Sean Spicer. Moving along. I have a question about Sony pushing the release date because didn't they do that with X-Men? Not X-Men, but the Wolverine story, the Wolverine backstory with him and Liev Schreiber. And
oh,
wasn't the
Wolverine
same thing that
Origins.
happened?
I believe something similar, but it wasn't to this extent.
Wasn't crunch,
Um,
but wasn't like the part of the movie or the plot release or some. So that's at least that's what I heard, which was why the special effects were so bad in certain. It was just like, wait a minute, what is going on here? Like, I think there was a part where Wolverine accidentally like hit the sink, like he sliced the sink open or something like that.
yeah.
He was just like, what's going on with these graphics? Apparently, I heard that the movie was rushed because part of it was leaked, or part of the storyline was leaked.
I mean, possible. Sony had that huge leak years ago where,
Mm.
it showed people's how much they were getting paid for per film, what films were in development. Like it was
Yeah.
bananas, and it cost them trust. It cost them, and like, because certain people who were working, they were getting paid one way, and someone was getting paid more or less. They found out about it, because that sort of thing you don't share, um,
Yeah,
because
you also don't tell the public that Idris Elba isn't allowed to be James Bond.
yeah, yeah, it was bad. Leaks are bad for the most part. I mean, outside of leaking something where people are being mistreated, like obviously those you do want to leak, or get it to the press or something so things can change and get better.
Yeah.
But not in a sense, in a case where like you're hurting the people who are working hard, because at the end of the day, that's how you get paid. Like, if my project succeeds, I get hired again. And yeah, but if not, it's like, or something doesn't come to fruition, like, hey, we had planned on doing I think it was what's the guy, Quentin Tarantino was saying how someone had leaked his script, and so he like canceled one of his films.
Hmm.
um and I don't know if he still, like, if he came back to it, but I remember reading about that, like, he just canceled it.
Uh,
And so the people who he was getting ready to, you know uh in terms of hire for the role of whoever in the
yeah,
film,
good job.
they're out of a job. And so
Yeah.
it's like, why just keep it to yourself? Like, that, those few little brownie points of like, ooh, you broke something. When it's something like that, it turns negative. It goes backwards. So,
Yeah.
keep that to yourself.
I just
Um,
think that Sony should have just been like, you know what? The plot's out there. It's already out there. If it's already out there, then there's no need to rush the game.
well, what's gonna happen is, or what I think is gonna happen is that they're gonna add some stuff to it to kind of offset maybe how some people feel. And so
Hmm.
that means more crunch. So, like, you didn't help. Like, you didn't.
Yeah.
Because typically what people think is when a game gets delayed, and for technical reasons or whatever, they're thinking like, oh, we have more time, but really that means more crunch because we don't want to delay it again.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying? So, like, it's jacked up. Um,
Mhm.
so outside of that, Destroy All Humans, the remaster, is got a release date. That's coming this July,
Hmm.
July 28th, I believe. And that game is hilarious. It's basically Grand Theft Auto, but you play as an alien who wants to destroy all humans. And you do things like, you can use his ability to kind of mask himself in like a holographic inducer. So, like, he can look like a human to kind of get into like secret bases and stuff like that when he's not just blowing stuff up or stealing cattle or whatever the case may be. It's a really fun game that was released years ago, and it's coming back for the PS4 and Xbox One and
Hmm.
PC. Um, 39.99, but you get all of, like, improved graphics and a few extra goodies in terms of like more missions than what was in the original game and stuff like that. So it
Hmm.
finally got a release date. It was announced back in E3 last year, and so yeah, coming in July. Now,
Cool.
put a pinch of salt in that because obviously all of this is tentative with Corona, out there. These dates are getting moved around, more than domino pieces. So, it right now it's looking like it's going to be in July, but there's that. Um, and then the last thing in gaming is actually more UFG related. We got to play Streets of Rage 4. I actually streamed it yesterday. The game came out today. We got a review code, I want to say 2 days ago. And so we've been playing the game or whatever, and we wanted to stream it so people can kind of check it out. So if you want to see the game before purchasing it, definitely go there. I kind of talk about the things that I like and I dislike. It's not a official review that will come later in written form, but it's something to kind of watch and kind of get into, see what you're getting into if you were to purchase the game. Like I said, it's out right now on just about everything. PS4, Xbox One, the Switch, PC, and yeah, it's pretty awesome so far. If you like beat 'em up games like Double Dragon, Final Fight, that sort of thing, or if
Mhm.
you're just a fan of Streets of Rage, uh, I would definitely look into it and check it out on their site.
Cool. Sounds like fun.
Yeah. So
Is
what's
is the other game you were talking about, the Alien game? Who's the maker of that game?
so that is THQ Nordic. They were originally just THQ, and that and the Nordic company joined forces to kind of they I want to say they went bankrupt like years ago, but then they kind of like started buying back all of their property and our intellectual property, and
Uh-huh.
so they've been re-releasing a lot of older games and remastering games, and so this is one of them on a long list of stuff that they had coming out,
Cool.
and so far it looks really good. Like we have a release date trailer on the site, and it shows the alien's name is um,
Crypto.
Crypto 153, or no, what is it? Crypto 137.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it shows him like causing all sorts of havoc. It's fun, like tongue in cheek type stuff. I don't know how well it holds up to today. I haven't played it in years, but when I did play it, it was hilarious. It was a good time. And so yeah, fun game.
It reminded me when you're talking about it, and you're like, it's really fun. It reminds me of like Grand Theft Auto. It reminded me of like Rockstar Games. Rockstar used to have this game called State of Emergency.
Oh yeah,
And I mean, obviously, I've never played the game that you're speaking of, but it just brought back flashbacks of like, State of Emergency. You go into the mall and it's just crazy. It's complete anarchy. It's chaos. And your job is to bash windows, and then you can beat up people for points and like kill cops for points, and then or it's like kill the security guards. The security they're not security guards, they're the men. What is it? They're like
the
the men.
man.
Yeah, they're the man, and they come after you. So if you see like if you're gonna get points for killing looters, they're still people. And so like and then like the man is trying to stop you from completing your mission because your mission is to grab a disc from somebody and then get it to the exit point without being stopped or killed or something. You just get points for doing other things like killing people, robbing, bashing windows, and all
Yeah,
kinds of silly things.
that game was nuts. That game was essentially what everybody what certain people thought Grand Theft Auto was.
Uh-huh.
Uh, they were like, "Oh, that's what you think Grand Theft Auto is?" It actually has a story, a plot, all this other good stuff. But
Right.
yeah, we're just gonna make what you think it is, and he gave that out. Um, and that's crazy. But like, Destroy All Humans is similar in the sense that there is a story. He's trying to leave. Well, he wants to kill everyone, but there's something else at the heart of the story too. But what's really cool is like I think it's set in like 1960s, um, and there's all this like people don't understand what's going on anyways. And so with him being there causing all this trouble, you can just imagine the things he's getting into.
Yeah.
Way back when not to say it was simpler times, but definitely simpler times with UFO sightings and stuff of that nature. So to have him like an alien actually land and do crazy stuff, yeah, it's great. It's great.
So what's playing in the background right now?
Right now is I was playing this game called Hob, and it's a what do you call it? It was free on the Epic Game Store. It came out I want to say last year, and it's a top-down game like puzzle game similar to Legend of Zelda, but a little lacking on the story, but
Mhm.
because nothing is spoken, there's no words or anything like that. Everything is kind of shown to you, and what I
Mhm.
gather is that there's a world that's like part nature, part machine that's like coexisting, and there's like this third force or force of nature that is corrupting everything, and it's like this pink goo and stuff, and all these monsters are showing up, and it's your job to kind of fix things, but it goes bad really quickly. You're following
Mhm.
this like golem like robot thing, and he's kind of showing you around, and he's kind of warning you of what not to touch and stuff like that, and you get infected by the purple goo, and he has to remove your arm. And
Oh.
so, in doing so, though, he gives you one of his arms, one of his robotic arms, and that arm can be used to open doors, to move large objects, basically solve puzzles around the environment. And over time, you get um, offensive skills like a sword and stuff like that, and abilities. And you essentially have to solve all these puzzles to kind of turn on these machines to make the world, I guess, better in a way.
Mhm.
I didn't get too far into the game. I want to say I solved two like major puzzles, which took a long time. By puzzle I mean you have to. There's like these mini puzzles where you have to find out how to unlock a door, and once you get through that door, you have to find out how on a switch that powers this big machine, and that switch, it's missing a part that you have to go find. So like it's this thing that kind of like unravels as you go,
Mhm.
and it's interesting. It was fun enough to continue, but I don't know if it's fun enough for me. I don't feel invested enough to finish.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
but it looked cool and it was peaceful. I love the artwork. There's like this soft, cell shaded artwork. Not necessarily as good as the Wind Waker, but decent. I can't remember who the indie dev is who made the game, but they did a swell job in terms of the puzzles, like how they're smart. Like you feel smart after you solve the puzzles, and the enemy encounters and stuff like that are pretty cool. It's just a little low, or a little. The story is slow moving, and I
Mhm.
think that because there's no dialogue, there's no text to read, you kind of have to really paint a picture. And what happens is there's a lot of puzzle solving, and then a little bit of story, and then a lot of puzzle solving. And so at some point it's like I forgot what I was doing. Like, why am I here again?
Right.
So that kind of took me out of it. But it's a fun game. I definitely it's fun enough, I should say. People, if you want, go ahead and check it out. It's on the Epic Game Store and Steam, I believe. And yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if I'm gonna keep playing just yet, but it's interesting.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So how one of the things we were talking about before, which kind of led to this particular episode, was fight scenes and just fighting in anime in general, because that's outside of like a well written story or something from like Studio Ghibli. We like the fights, at least in the U.S., right? Because like those are the ones that kind of get really big. The Naruto's, Dragon Ball Z's,
Mhm.
Bleach is the ones that are action oriented.
Mhm.
And so we got to talking, and we were like, you know what? We should talk about some of our favorite fight scenes in
Mhm.
anime. And oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said fight night.
Yeah, fight night. And so we decided to kind of we made a list of a few different anime fight scenes, and we're kind of going to talk about them and share why we thought they were really cool. Kind of go back and forth. So I'll share one, and then Tess will share one, and
Mhm.
we'll go from there. Um, in terms of like the fights. Now, mind you, these aren't necessarily the best fights from the show. For instance, I'll take my first pick, Naruto, Lee versus Gara. Now,
Um.
that isn't the best fight in the Naruto series. It's really not. There's so many more, and that's not even the best Lee fight. Lee
Right.
fought Kimamaru, the bone guy,
The bone
and
guy. Yeah.
he did the drunken style kung fu that was like it was awesome. It was just
Yeah.
the anime was fluid, like the movements were really cool to see in terms of
Mhm.
him combining his hits and actually overpowering a much more powerful opponent. And it was awesome to see. And but this particular fight, this was Lee's first big fight on the
Yeah.
show
Yeah.
and in the manga. And the reason why this is dope is because Lee was counted out so much because he doesn't have um, he can't do ninjutsu. Like
Right.
um, he can't summon. He doesn't have like the Sharingan or any type of
Right.
bloodline trait that allows him to do something cool. He can't, you know, shoot fireballs. He can't do any of those things. He is all about physicality, punching, kicking, that sort of thing. And Gara is like, I mean, he had not only does he have one of the tailed beasts inside him, which gives him power. He also controls sand. Like he is feared as a child. He is feared by his entire country, or yeah, his entire country basically,
Mhm.
because he's so freaking powerful, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And that's as a kid. Obviously, he gets older and he gets better, but for right now, he's basically a demon with sand.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Totally.
what's dope about this fight is like people are like, "Yo, Lee's gonna die. Like, don't put him up against." And so, but of course, Guy Sensei is like, Psh, "Y'all don't know about Lee. Y'all
Yo, guy sensei. Everybody needs a guy sensei in their life.
facts." Like, and and granted, you don't need anyone. That you need to match your outfits with, um, at a young age. That's a little
How do
bit.
you know?
That's a little.
Why do you say that? I don't agree. What you need an
That's.
older person to look like.
I mean, if that's your father, sure, but that's a little too R. Kelly for me. We need to you not
Oh,
to match. However, him
oh,
teaching him, I believe it's Tai Chi, like the fighting style that he taught him allows him to unlock what's called the gates,
yeah.
and basically gives him chakra boost. So like he gets faster, he gets stronger, he can do
Mhm.
some amazing things, punching and kicking. And he goes up against Gara, and it's one-sided. It is one-sided out the gate because, like I
Yeah.
said, Gara is a beast, and he's not letting him get any punches in. And people are like, "Ah, I knew it. I knew we shouldn't have we shouldn't have put Lee in this situation."
Hmm.
And but then he starts to, he's like, "You know what? I'm gonna go for it," and he starts to unlock the gates. And I want to say he unlocks like three
Move.
gates or something like that,
Move.
and he's flying. And he's actually, so like Gara, one of the things about him is that he puts sand all over his body as like a thin shield. So when he gets punched, he doesn't necessarily feel it. And Gara was like moving so quick that he could actually get some punches in, and it started to crack his armor. So
Hmm.
Gara's like, "Who is this dude? Like, what?
Hmm.
I've never been like touched like this before." Um, and so he goes on the offense, and he starts to hurt Lee. And so people are like, "Okay, I see you, Lee. You're doing it, but not enough to win, right?" And so he unlocks, I think, two more gates, I believe.
Hmm.
I'm doing this all from memory, and he goes insane. When
Yeah,
I
he
tell you
went
he does,
crazy.
well, he does more than crack his armor. Like he knocks pieces off. He's punching him in the air and jumping in the air and like slamming him in the ground. He's using
Hmm.
like he tie his hands up with like wraps or whatever. He uses his wraps from his wrists and hands to grab Gara and like keep him close to him so he can continue to pummel him. Like it was it was amazing to see. And then unfortunately, he loses. His leg is broken, and Gara is literally getting ready to kill him. And
His whole
uh,
body is broken.
yeah, he's a wreck. And some of the higher ups jump down to kind of stop Gara before he kills him. But his he was Lee got respect that day.
Yeah.
Though even though he lost, he was respected. Like, oh, you don't need to do all the stuff that we do. Like, you're pretty amazing. And he goes from there. Like, from that point throughout the rest of the show, he gets better and better and better, and people start to respect him more because at one point he was kind of like Naruto in his group, where he's like the laughing stock. He's
Yeah.
the we don't expect much from you, that sort of thing. Similar to Guy Sensei when they do flashbacks about him and his team. He was kind of like they don't believe in you for the most part. He had to
Hmm.
prove himself, and so that was Lee's turning point, which is rather early in the show,
Yeah.
um, where he's like, okay, I am a ninja. I can be a part of, this elite group of people. Like I can defend myself. I can protect people. Uh, you know, Even though that I can't do some of the things that you can do,
Yeah.
um, I'm still pretty awesome. And it was basically his Batman moment. Like he was Batman for the for that episode.
Yeah.
And it worked out pretty well for him in the long run.
In the long run, yeah. I mean, to me, it's kind of like Steve Urkel and the come up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it was like, I'm the nerdiest of the nerds. Nobody really respects me. People know me for not really having any skills, but I work really hard and I'm smart, or kind of. And then he had his like Urkel to Stefan moment, and it was like, whoa, it was a complete glow up. I
Yes.
mean, he like, I mean, nobody has ever seen him fight that way. It was kind of like when Hinata got her shit together, and Hinata was
Yes.
insane. I mean, again, we're not gonna list all the fights from Naruto, but when nobody expects that you have that ability, guy killed. I love that episode. I love that fight. It's awesome.
Yes. It was great. I was rooting for him. I was really like just watching it. I was like, oh, he's gonna win, folks. He's
Yeah,
gonna win.
and
Yeah,
he
it
did.
was great. But it was okay. It was a good loss.
Poorly, poorly. So yeah, so I know that was a great fight. We all agree. I think a lot of people will probably be like, yeah, no, that was an amazing fight. One of my fights that I have listed is from the show Basilisk. So if you are a Basilisk fan, you'll know it is fight heavy, ninja style, not comedic. It is a serious show. It's kind of on the same level as Ninja Scroll.
Right.
And the first fight from the first episode, so right out the gate, I think this is one of the reasons why the show was able to captivate so many viewers, is just because that first fight scene right out the gate with Shogun versus Yashamaru is just, it's graphic, it's ridiculous, it's disgusting, and it just kind of makes you feel a certain type of way. You're like, wait a minute, I need to watch this. And I can't remember if that came out, what, it was like 2003 or something, 2004. I don't remember. But we're
Yeah.
at a point in time where animation is starting to get better. It's starting to, they're using more computer graphics, they're using more techniques to make animation look better. And at that point in time, it was really, really, really well done. I think it was a very well animated first episode. So you have Yashamaru using those very thin wires, almost like cat's cradle,
Yeah.
throwing them out like, oh, I'm gonna kill you. And then you have Shogun, who's basically a human arachnid. It's disgusting. Okay? He's a spider. He's sitting there throwing phlegm. I didn't even know that spiders threw phlegm. Or was he not a spider? Was he supposed to be some other type of
I,
creature?
I think
Doesn't
he was.
matter.
Yeah, it doesn't. It was just creepy, regardless.
Gross. Like, gross. He's crawling around on all fours. I swear to God, there were other legs in there. Don't know, but there could have been. He's crawling around looking like some sort of creature. Yashamaru is looking like a normal person. And that part where, Yashamaru was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get you, because Yashamaru gets the upper hand at the first throw, and he gets Shogun on that rock.
Yeah.
And so basically Shogun is stuck on this rock with these thin wires, and Yashamaru's like, I'm gonna kill you, because they were allowed to play to the death. The whole purpose of the fight was so that Tokugawa could pick, which ninja would represent which ninja clan would represent one of his sons to, become the next shogun. And it's like so wonderful how they decided things back then. Oh, the life of you is just so unnecessary that I'm going to let you guys fight to the death to prove which one of my, privileged sons gets to sit on my, I'm not going to say throne, because the shogun was not the emperor. They were a military
Right.
general. But I'm like, yeah, so basically you ninja, I know you train your whole life and you kill your besties to get to where you need to be in life. I don't care about your life. Even though you protect me, I don't really care. You don't mean anything. Go ahead and kill yourself so I can figure out who's stronger. So you've got Yashamaru, who's got Shogun on this rock. He then does some weird thing with his fingers, cat's cradle, and then next thing you know, the rock is obliterated. But Shogun, he finds some way to get out of it, flies on the roof. Lord knows, they're sitting there fighting. You've got the Tokugawa, who's sitting there like, these people are disgusting. You've got Hattori Hanzo, third Hanzo or whatnot, sitting there like, yeah, man, this isn't gonna go. So somebody's about to be dead. And next thing you know, Shogun's shot this phlegm or whatever. He's got Yashamaru in a really bad position, has the nerve to touch him inappropriately. I was definitely very, very shocked. I was like, wow, that's graphic. Luckily, this isn't on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, I downloaded it. But anyway, I mean, just the fact that like Yashamaru was at that point where he's like, I'm about to lose my life, and then next thing you know, he manages to shoot wires from every part of his body because he's a ninja and he keeps wires just tied around parts of his body, and they just obey his every whim. And it cuts off his hair. That was the coolest part. The part that he loses all of his hair, and then, well, not all of it, but because he's in a tight spot, he's like, the only way to get out of this is to dramatically shoot these wires out of my body, and they're going to beautifully cut my hair off. So anyway, they keep fighting each other. It's all dramatic until finally Ieyasu Tokugawa is like, okay, that's enough. I've seen what you guys can do, and then tells everybody what they're supposed to do. And the next thing you know, fight's over. You got the two ninja clans who are warring. They're like, yay, we get to kill each other. And then the best part of that episode is obviously when Ogen and Danjo kill each other. that came out of nowhere. But great first episode, great fights. I was hooked, and that's one of my favorite shows.
Yeah, it totally set the tone. That fight reminded me of, I mean, granted, we already said that it reminds you of Ninja Scrolls, but it reminds me of in the film where the guy with the bees like in his back um was fighting, and the way they killed him was, he ended up falling in water, and like the bees or whatever they got upset and like stung him on the inside, and he ended up dying. But like the
Okay.
fact that he was able to use uh, bugs, or like be kind of like a bug and fight against a ninja in that way was really interesting. So like when I saw this particular fight, I was like, oh, this totally has that vibe
Yeah.
uh, from before, and I wonder, granted, it's one of those things where you could say like it was kind of like inspired, but maybe not, based on the timing and whatnot. Similar to like uh, it just fell out of my head, but anything that kind of happens at the same time that's very similar, like the Hunger Games and what
Mm-hmm.
is that, Battle Royale? Like the two
Yeah.
writers didn't know of each other, but they wrote similar, plots.
Yeah, I still don't believe that she didn't know.
I mean, I can only take her word for it, but it's the timing, because one of the things was like how quickly she could write the book and get it out and then get it blown up that big makes more sense on her side, and saying that she didn't know, because usually when you're copying someone, you don't even know if it's going to be popular yet. Like it was so
Mhm.
early in Battle Royale that there was some buzz here, but not enough for me to go, I'm going to go copy that. Unless you're just like, I just know this is going to blow up, and so I got to make the Hunger Games. I don't know, but I was like, okay, I could kind of see.
Side
Um,
note. Side note. I mean, like, I was side combo. I like going in what you're saying. I more personally feel that there are a lot more foreign film fans out there than I think we give credit to.
oh,
And
totally.
yeah, and so I'm not going to say that this was just a straight up copy because that's bold, but it doesn't mean that there was no inspiration there because it was popular in Japan, it was popular in Asia, and it was popular enough here. I mean, I know that I worked at a foreign film store, we sold anime and everything else, so it was like obviously it's going to be easy for me to find it. But it was just so like the just the double winners, like she says that she based it off of Greek mythology, off of the Minotaur. And I'm like, okay, that's fine if that's what you want to say. It was just the double winner thing was like because everything else was exactly the same, and then you had the double winner.
Yeah,
Like that's so specific.
it is. It is. Anywho,
Anyway, moving on.
um, so my next fight is actually from the Street Fighter 2 the movie. Uh, and this is basically Chung Lee versus Vega. This
Mm,
was a dope fight. The animation in that film was really, really good. Not just because it was drawn really well, but there was realistic movements. One of the things that would kind of bother me about some fight scenes in animated features is I know you're going to be doing superhuman feats of strength or superhuman abilities, moves, whatever the case may be. It's really cool though to see like realistic kicks and punches though. And in Street Fighter, there were a lot of times where there was a real blow, like someone blocked properly and punched properly or hit. Like there's the fight with Ryu and the guy that looks like Bruce Lee. I can't remember his name. There's a couple of times where he punched. It looked like a UFC fight
Mm.
at certain moments. And so this particular fight, though, is not the best of the film, but it's one of those things where, similar to Lee, you have a person who hadn't shown her potential just yet. We know her from the game, obviously, but in terms of the film, she hadn't shown how dope she is. And Vega is an assassin coming to kill her on the orders of Bison. And yeah, he caught her by surprise. She
Mm.
wasn't ready for it. She's not even dressed properly, and she's getting beat all crazy. And Vega has blades, on some Edward Scissorhands stuff. So like he's cutting her up and throwing her around, and while this is happening, Giles is calling her. He's on his way over there, and she gets knocked into the phone. Now this is back in the day where they had the wired phones. We don't have those nowadays, but she knocks the phone over. So like typically like it wouldn't do anything, but because it was one of the older phones, he could hear what was going on. Like it didn't just hang up, and so he's like, oh crap. So he's like put his car in gear and he's flooring it over there. So you're thinking like, oh, Chung Lee's gonna die because she's getting mollywopped. But then all of a sudden she's like, um, Vega gloats, and this is where things kind of go left for for him. Um, he knocks her like so she's doing decent in terms of like getting out of the way of his spikes, and she flipped him a couple times and stuff like that. But for the most part, she's losing, and he knocks her over to the couch, and she's like leaning on the couch, and he takes his mask off, and he's like, I'm pretty, and I'm this and that, and you basically had no choice. Like this is gonna happen to you, and she gets upset. She picks up the couch and throws it at him, and from there it's on. She's punching, kicking, she's flipping and like grabbing onto the I guess like the rafters or whatever in her place, and is like beating him up or whatever. And he's still getting his licks in or what, and in terms of fighting back, but she's starting to dominate. Um, she hits him in the face a couple of times, and he because he's a pretty boy. He's like, I can't believe you did that, and so he cuts her up even more, and she kicks him back, and he hits the wall. And then there's a point where she tries to run, but because she's lost so much blood, she trips and falls, and she's stumbling, and she looks up, and like her vision is all hazy. But she's like, she knows like if I don't take him out now, I'm dead. Especially now that he's angry. She runs over and she does her patented kick where she's kicking him like 1,000 times, and she's hitting
Mhm.
him so many times that his head is like being pushed through the wall, and then finally like kicked out and like out of her building, like onto the street below. Awesome finish. And
Wow.
and right as that happened, like Guile runs through the door, and like he gets her to the hospital and whatnot. But like I didn't think she was gonna win. I was like, they can't kill Chung Li like this.
Chung
Like what
Lee.
is this? This you can't just do this. And she fought hard and was able to come back. It's a dope fight. Google it, check it out for yourself.
Hmm.
It's a classic fight, classic Street Fighter match, if you will.
Yeah, I love me some Chun Li. Chun Li is awesome.
She's great.
I was definitely not a fan of the like real people movie.
That didn't happen. There's just put that. We could just take that somewhere and just
The
leave it.
only reason why I liked the only thing was Jean Claude Van Damme.
Oh, and see, you know what? I thought you were talking about the other Street Fighter movie where she's the main protagonist. That one's even worse,
That
if
one's
you can believe
worse.
it.
Isn't that
It-
like yeah, that one's worse. Okay, we're done. Moving on. Moving on. Yeah, no, Street Fighter. Oh my God. Yeah, Chun Li's the bomb. I love using her on Marvel vs. Capcom because, she be kicking. Toryuken! Um, so I don't think that I actually saw that one, the animated movie, but I'm gonna have to now because it sounds like fun. um, so my next one is from Inuyasha. You guys might hear me talk about Inuyasha a lot because I love Inuyasha. I mean, really, I really just love Sesshomaru. But anyway, so one of my favorite fights. It's not necessarily the best fight, but it is a fight that I really like because I love Seishomaru. So, one of the times where he's being a nice guy and he's protecting Rin, she got kidnapped by some crazy person from the Shichinin Tai. And so Seishomaru has to rescue her. And, when it comes to Rin, he just pulls out the stops. He does not care. Like, remember, he tried to kill Inuyasha in movie 3. Mind you, he's tried to kill Inuyasha many times, really without cause. What, over a sword that your daddy didn't give you? Like, that's just Inuyasha. I mean, that's Seishomaru just being a bitchy older brother who's upset.
Pretty
But
much.
when it comes to Rin, like, he's serious. He's like a gangster at that point. He's like, what did you do? Don't come from my family. It's my family. And that he turns into straight up Godfather mode. And I'm telling you, man, you can't touch Rin or he's over it. Because in movie 3, when Inuyasha lost his consciousness because of the sword and ended up like going crazy and running after Rin and almost killed her, and you have poor Kagome like screaming after him like, oh, Suaris, sit down, to try to get him to stop from killing her because she knows what's about to happen. And Seishomaru didn't even flinch. He did not flinch. He saw Inuyasha going after Rin and was like, screw it. I'll kill him now. He's like, I've waited all this time. I've literally given this boy mercy every week. We fight once a week. I have not killed him. I've had the ability to kill him every time. I just don't come hard because I'm kind of lazy. This moment, the look in Seishomaru's eyes has never been like that before. He got his nails out all long and he put his hand back. He was about to put his hand right through Inuyasha's chest. He is so lucky that Kagome saved his life. It also broke the necklace. This is not even the scene that I'm talking about. I'm just using this as pretext to show you how much Seishomaru loves Rin. That is basically his daughter. Like, do not come for her. He loves her more than life itself. And Inuyasha almost lost his life. And then we wouldn't have had a show called Inuyasha anymore because he would have died by his brother's hand, who wanted to kill him the whole time anyway. So,
Yeah.
somebody's wishes would have been fulfilled. But moving along, this is when one of the Shichinin Tai kidnapped Rin, and so Seishomaru has to fight Jakotsu. Remember, Shichinin Tai it's a bunch of people who are actually dead. They were all given part of the Shikon Jewel to come back to life. And Jakotsu is the one who you might think is a woman when you first see him, but it's really a man dressed in a woman's clothing. Anyway, and he kind of has feelings for Seishomaru. He's like, oh, you're hot. And Seishomaru's like, like, no, my silence meant like that's literally his face. He's like,
Yes.
yeah, totally don't get down like that. So he's like, I just want my little girl. Mind you, I love replaying these things in my voice. So he's like, so I just came to get my little girl. I heard you guys had her. No harm, no foul. Just give her back and everything's good. And then they're like, no, that's not how we roll here. We're actually going to like try to kill her to make you fight me because I just want to test out my sword on you. And he's like, yeah, I'm not about that life. And then Jakotsu's like, well, I am. So you're going to fight me. So let's do it. So Jakotsu has that crazy sword, which is like really, really weird. Kind of reminds me of the dude from Bleach whose sword got really long, but no, this one, it's like a bunch of sword links and they're all like linked together, kind of like a slinky. I don't know how to explain it, but
Yeah.
the point is he can throw the sword, it gets longer. He can, bring it back like with a flick of his wrist. Look at the flick of the wrist, like, and the sword just comes back. But like he's going in. He's like, no, Seishomaru, you're gonna fight me now. Seishomaru is a really good swordsman. He can fight, and whatever it is, he's cool with that. But he's really got to worry about Rin's life because he realizes that this guy's sword has a reach that he's not used to fighting. It's one thing to fight somebody head on or fight a demon or a monster that has certain type of powers. This guy is just a human with a sword that does really crazy things, and so he has no kind of knowledge of where the sword is going to hit. So he can't fight with his normal strength because he doesn't know if the sword is going to hit Rin or not. He's not willing to sacrifice her life because he can't bring her back to life anymore. He already did that once. So he's like fighting this dude, trying to get. He's coming up with all kinds of plans because you have to know Seishomaru might be lazy because he doesn't want to put in a lot of effort to do anything. However, he's always thinking. His brain's always working. So every time he crosses swords with this guy, he's like, "No, I got this." Like he gets one step closer to figuring out a way to get Rin back. And then finally, I guess he gets the upper hand. He's like, "Rin, run." He takes his own sword, like throws it at the dude, like gets the dude through the chest, and the dude's like, "Oh, not that easy." So Shomaru disarmed his own self. He got rid of. He's already missing one arm. He's missing his left arm, so he only has his right arm, which had also gotten cut up already. But then he throws his sword, so now he doesn't even have anything to defend himself, and he allows this guy to basically slice up his own body so that Rin can get away. And it was like, it was such a nice moment. Like, it was a good fight anyway. It was actually good and it was entertaining, but it was such a nice moment to watch Sesshomaru risk his own body for someone else. He's only done that for Inuyasha maybe a couple of times, but in the series up until that point, I don't believe he had done it yet. So here you have him showing the utmost kindness to this girl, this human child, who, mind you, he never really had any care for humans before. Remember, a human is what took his father away from him. You know how much he loves his dad. So
Right.
So I love that scene. I love the love that he showed for Rin to protect her, and then his like plan didn't really work anyway. And then I can't remember. I think she got kidnapped anyway. Again, he wins in the end. He always gets her back. So, but I used to rewind that and play it over again. I'm like, oh, look at all the blood. Like he's getting cut up. Like, oh, my baby, say Shomaru. Anyway, that's how I feel about that. Good episode.
Yeah, that Inuyasha was crazy, like altogether.
So
That
long.
show is interesting. Uh, my next fight actually comes from Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood,
Yeah.
and it's basically King Bradley versus an army, Captain Buccaneer, the Humunculus Greed, and like a bunch of other people. Like, yeah, King Bradley is on some other shit. Like, I don't. This is one of the points in the anime where like you see like the boss comes and he's really nothing to be played with. And he's not even the boss. He's a couple steps down. But he goes from so like is he starts with an ill line. They I'm not gonna go over the whole story, but the good guys basically take over his castle, and they're all like they barricaded it. They have a tank, multiple soldiers with guns, and he just walks up with a sword, and they're like, he's gonna go straight for the front door, and he's like, do you expect me to go through the back door in my own castle? And then charges by himself at
Hmm.
these people. He's dodging bullets. He's splitting them in half with his sword. He's cutting up people. He gets to the tank, and the dudes are so shook that they start backing up. They back up into into the building or castle, whatever, and they're going up the stairs, firing off shells at him. And he's splitting them in half and like moving around. He's so fast that they can't hit him. And
Yeah.
the dudes inside the tank, they're in a tank. They're
They're in a tank.
Bradley has a sword. They're like backing up or whatever. They back up all the way up to like this main platform, and he ends up killing them or whatever. Um, and so it's just Captain Buccaneer, who's like he has like a metallic arm, and um, he's actually a really strong soldier. He's like, well, I guess I have to face him now, and so they get ready to fight, and like within one move, Bradley takes his whole arm off, and that was the end of that. And so the Homunculus Greed comes. Now Greed has been uh, kind of reborn in another character. So King Bradley, he's a Homunculus as well, and him and Greed had some beef. They end up killing Greed,
Mm.
and another guy who had beef with King Bradley, who they fought. He's from another country. Um, he lost the fight with King Bradley too, and so they actually merged these two characters, and like some of Greed's, I guess, essence gets inside of him, and so it's both of them at the same time. So like he
Mhm.
has his fighting ability from his body, and then Greed's strength and durability from being homunculus. So pretty powerful dude. Go up against King Bradley, and they can barely stand up against him. Uh, his swords are just flying by back and forth, and uh, Greed has the ability to like harden his body, almost to the point of like where he can cut people with his hands, or like he can block bullets and stuff like that with his arms, and he's getting beaten around with this sword like it's nothing, and he's like moving super fast, and like at one point uh King Bradley realizes that because he wears an eye patch, he realizes that he's staying to his like left side. He's the eye patch. He's like, oh, you think that's going to help you? And he removes the eye patch. And what it is that it was more like a hindrance to himself. He
Yeah,
only did that because of he was hiding the fact that he was a homunculus, but everyone knows now for the most part. And so he removes it, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not blind. Like I can see."
he
And
goes.
then it gets yeah, it goes left from there. They eventually take him out, or at least fight to a standstill with the help of like multiple people,
Hmm.
multiple like powered up people, whatever. But it's one of the it's not the best fight in Full Metal, but it's one of the best fights just because of how dominant
Yeah.
Bradley was. Like just a tank.
Yeah, it's a damn tank. Like, and this is Brotherhood because I didn't watch Brotherhood. I only watched the first one.
Yeah, so like Brotherhood does it's similar, but they chop out most of the. It's actually there's no filler. They chop out all the filler. They stay closer to the manga as possible,
Hmm.
and I want to say the animation itself is a little bit better. But they so like all the rigmaroles is out of it, and it actually begins and ends really well.
Okay.
And so yeah, I would. It's on Netflix. Check
Yeah.
that out. But it's the better version of the two, and yeah, it's the better version.
Oh my God. Okay. Because I always heard that they're like, oh no, not Brotherhood. Like, no. And like the first one was the better one. I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. I just
I
didn't
mean,
know.
there's some things. I mean, I think the first one was cool because I mean, it's more of the anime. So like it has there's way more episodes than it needs to be. There's extra characters that don't need to be there.
Yeah.
There's more fun to be had. But
Yeah.
in Brotherhood, they get down to it. Like it's
Yeah.
there's moments where it's really sad.
I heard it was sad. I heard people were like, "Oh, it's sad," but I was like, "Is it sad in a good way? Like it's sad, like this is a good?" Because you know me, I like a sad story. Like I'm all for the. I'm like, "Ooh, ooh, you got murdered. Ooh, that's good writing."
Yeah,
Because I like good writing.
it's very good, and because the sad stuff is one of those things where like, and I'm not gonna say what happens because I don't want to spoil it, but it's one of those things where you see something happening, and as the audience, you put together stuff before
The
the
cat.
main characters do,
Yeah.
and so you see what's about to happen. You're like, oh, and then it happens. You're like, no, and it's like,
Yep.
it's a gut punch, but it's good though. I mean, um it's done in a good way. It's not sad in the sense like it's not Attack on Titan sad. There is hope, but
Is there?
it's yeah, there is hope, but it's sad in a way that like I didn't expect this person to die, or I didn't expect this person to this be the truth of what they were looking for.
Yeah.
What they found wasn't what they actually were looking for or what they were hoping for. The reality in certain instances and what has to be done in order to survive. Those things where it's sad is like this was written, like you would clap afterwards. Like it was such a
Mhm.
good. I want to own it. That's how good it is. Like it's
Oh,
and I can stream it for free, or
yeah.
well, kind of for free, but I can stream it right now, and I would still like to own it. That's how good
I,
it is.
you can download it, right?
I mean, you can download it for a certain time, and then you have to check back into Netflix.
Oh,
Um,
I got it.
but yeah, like I want to like purchase and own. Um, Similar to how I want to own Studio Ghibli films, but they never go on sale past a certain point, and we're not going to talk about that. But please go on sale, anyways. Um,
It's like the vault. It's like the Disney vault.
it's they're very good films, and I totally understand why. But when there, because there was and this is a side note, but there was a deal to get, I want to say like 10 of the films or something
I
like that, and
remember
like
you
in
told
a
me.
bundle. It was like 200. So I was like, no, man, no. I
Yo,
mean,
I'm
I
like,
would, but
you're
no.
worth it.
That's a whole console.
You
Nah, nah.
shut up. You're like I could do more important things. No,
Yeah.
no, just buy
Mm-mm.
them. Just
I
by
get one a, I get 2 or 3 a year. That's it, if I can. Like this, I'm not. Nope.
Ah.
Anywho,
Anywho, okay, so I mean, obviously we're gonna run out of time soon, so I'm just gonna list off my the next ones that I have written down, and I'll just run down them briefly. So I think this is obvious for people: Kenshin versus Saito, the first time they fought in the series, when the
yep.
basically right when Kenshin starts to ramp up. Everyone knows if you've watched Kenshin that it's like nothing really happens except obviously that one guy with the messed up thumb holy thing. Like nothing really happens until Saito shows up. That's where the action starts building. That's where you continue to build on the story. That's the good stuff because it goes off into the what's his face arc. The point is, Kenshin versus Saito is still a monumental, very important fight. Like this was back then, and the animation on that fight was so good, and you got to see Kenshin turn evil. Like the fact that he
Yeah.
couldn't hear Kaoru anymore, it's such an important scene because Kaoru was just like, he can't hear me. He like, no, I don't want him to do this. And then, the guys like, let them fight. You can't reach him right now. So emotionally, like watching that was like I felt Kaoru. I felt what she was going through in that moment. And I just love the words that they use because Kenshin, every time he talks, he's just like so kind of like happy go lucky, this, that, and the other, something, something de gozaru, something, something, oro, whatever. But in this one, it was more like his eyes got evil. And when what's his face, when Saito said to him, I forgot. What's funny? I forgot what Saito says, but what Kenshin responds to him is "Ore no hon," like that's my book, that's my line. "Ore no seifu" or whatever, like that's my line. Like because he said something like "I'm gonna kill you," something like that.
Yeah.
And so when you get to see Kenshin turn into this person, and you realize, wow, that's the murderer that lived inside of him all those years, and he's still like you can take. I'm sorry, you can't take the murderer out of the man. I'm sorry, you can take the girl out of the hood. You can't take the hood out of the girl. Like anyway, can't see you can take the man out of the war, but you can't take the war out of the man or whatever. The point is, he was still a killer, and he was good at it, and it was a great scene, and I loved it. Moving on. We haven't mentioned any girls in this yet, and there's so many amazing fights with girls in them. I just didn't list them, but I did list Serena versus Queen Beryl from Sailor Moon, everyone, because first of all, Sailor Moon is definitely one of those entry animes that people watch, at least if
Yeah.
you're my age. And season one ender was Sailor Moon versus Queen Beryl. All her little friends had died, which again, this was great. The fact that all the Sailor Scouts died that episode. Is literally dead. They're all dead. They're not knocked out. They're dead. They are dead. They're not coming back. And I was like, this is amazing. They got killed. I'm just saying it's how I feel. Like sometimes you're like, people have to die. And if you're as annoying as the Sailor Scouts, I mean, honestly, Serena should have been the dead one, but whatever. The point is, everybody died. She's at the end. She's fighting Queen Beryl. She's like, I don't think I can do this because that's who Serena is. And then she's like, give me the strength to carry on. And then next thing you know, all her friends' spirits come back and they like help her hold the moon crystal wand thingy. And then she like defeats Queen Beryl, and Queen Beryl's like, ah! And then everything is like normal, I guess. And then she brings all her friends back to life because, that's how these shows work. And so unfortunately, you can't have any of these annoying people dead. And next thing you know, life is back to normal. Just nobody knows each other anymore. They all lost their memories. But yeah, it was a great fight. So thank you, Serena and Queen Beryl. Thank you, Sailor Moon, for doing what needed to happen. Yeah, moving along. I also have one from something that not many people listening may know, but the show is called Skryed. In Japanese, they always called it Skraido. Like that's the way it sounded, Skraido. But if you're familiar with it, Kazuma and Ryuho obviously hate each other from the jump, and their fight scenes when they had them were actually really good. And the final scene between Kazuma and Ryuho, which is where the series ends, and you're like, oh, did they die? Because they were so strong. Basically, Kazuma and Ryuho were like Goku and Vegeta. That's
Yeah.
pretty much what it was. There's so many of those relationships. That type of relationship is such a, what do you call it? It's just a common theme in animes. That you have the Inuyasha versus Seishomaru. You have the well, obviously I already mentioned Goku versus Vegeta, but you have that polar, those opposites, but then both of them end up being good characters. They're actually like, your antagonist ends up actually being really a catalyst instead of just being an antagonist. So
Right.
um, I liked their relationship and kind of the way the show went. I thought they were going to do a season 2, never heard of it, so whatever. And then last one on my list, since it was a short list, was Wu Fei versus Trey's Marquis. So no, wait, sorry, Zex's last name was Marquis. What was Trey's last name?
I have no idea.
Forgot. Trey's.
I just called him by his first. I didn't.
Yeah, just Trey's. Why couldn't his name just be Trey? Maybe it was too black. Mm. Anyway, Wu Fei versus Trey's. If you're familiar with Gundam Wing, which was apparently the worst of all the Gundams, I always hear that. I used to always hear that. They're like, Gundam Wing is the worst of the Gundam shows. And I was like, well, it was one of the most popular ones since it came on after Dragon Ball Z, so whatever.
Right.
Point is, there were so many things that went on in that show. Just so many things. So many themes. We all hate Relena. I know you feel that way. Yo, she's one of the worst characters to go down in history. Like, for real. Like,
I
and
mean, you're
I'm all for
not
women
lying.
leadership and women power, but Relena, somebody please knock that girl off the Peacecraft throne. I would deal with her brother as the leader, even though he's a murderous asshole. As long as he has Noin by his side, he's good to go. The point is, moving on to Wu Fei versus Trey's. Now, everybody knows that Trey's had a relationship with Lady Un. Lady Un was crazy, and she needed Trey's to be there to like keep her sane because she's a woman and she always needed to like fight and show her place. And Trey's kind of was always there to like reel her right back in. Like Trey is a military leader. He is good at what he does. He never really flipped out and went cray cray, like super cray cray. But Lady Anne did, and she was vicious. I mean, that woman led an army, and she gave no mercy. And every time she was going like super crazy, Trey's would always be like, "Hey, that's not ladylike." Now, mind you, that's sexist, but at the same time, she was crazy. Okay, he had to reel her back in any way he could, and him saying, "Hey, you're not being ladylike," really worked for her. So unfortunately, with his death, then she's over in a corner crying on the floor. She's like crazy. She can't be helped. Moving on. Wu Fei and Trey's. Wu Fei didn't want to kill Trey's. Wu Fei wanted to kill the oppressor. He was doing his job as one of the 5 Gundams, right? And
Yeah.
Trey's was obviously the opposition, leading the I forgot what they were called. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The Earth Sphere Alliance, was it? What? Who cares? Point is, Trey's was leading the military that obviously the Gundams were fighting against, Gundam and all their peeps. And it was just down to a fight of morals. That's what it was between the two of them at that point. It was like Wu Fei believed that Trey's had a certain moral compass that he completely disagreed with, and he was like, "This is my chance." Everybody else had fought their other people, and Wu Fei had the time to. I think Trey's had mentioned how I think he thought that Wu Fei was a great fighter, and I think Wu Fei had said the same thing, like, well, that guy can fight, and they fought each other. And Wu Fei had an amazing Gundam. We all know this. That Gundam, the way that those arms came out, Shenlong, that was a great the dragon. That's what his Gundam was. And that fight when Wu Fei like turned around, like I liked that part of Gundam Wing. I liked the way that it was animated, like you would see their face, and then you would see like if they were physically fighting a real fight, they would move in that way, and then the Gundam would do the same thing. So I always liked that style of animation, like this realistic idea of what a person would physically do, and then zooming out and seeing what the machine is doing. And so, when he like stuck him through the Gundam, which is basically like, killing him through the chest, I was like, no, Trey, even with your crazy eyebrows, I still liked you. And then, Trey's died. But right before he died, he had said all these things about how he really cared about his military and all of these things that made Wu Fei realize that Trey's really wasn't the enemy. And then Wu Fei felt really bad about killing him. So that was really the hard part, digesting that episode. I had to rewind it just to when Trey's is alive so I can feel better about my life. And that's the end of my list.
Okay. Well, that works. For mine, I had the fight with Kuro versus Silva and Zeno from Hunter x Hunter.
Hmm.
It didn't. It actually ended in a standstill. Silva and Zeno are actually they're family members, and they're part of a family of assassins, and they are extremely powerful. And this one person was able to kind of stand up against them without dying instantly was
Mm.
pretty dope. So that definitely check out that fight. Hunter x Hunter, for the most part, is kind of great, except for the main protagonist, Gong. His dad is an ass, and yeah, that's just bad Father of the Year. You thought Goku was bad, bro?
Oh, yeah. Well, Goku's
Um,
absent.
Yeah, and you know what? To set the record straight, he shouldn't get too much of a bad rap when it comes to Gohan and Piccolo raising him because he died. I keep people forget that fact that he actually
Exactly.
died and had to go through this whole thing to get back to Earth.
Yeah.
Um, it's after that where
Right.
he's a
He's like,
bad.
oh, by the way, honey, I'm back from the dead. Yay. Oh, by the way, I got to go get in the spaceship and go over here. Like, dude,
Yeah,
seriously?
after she had another kid, right? So he's bad after the fact.
That's it.
But yeah, the Hunter x Hunter is pretty cool. It ends kind of poorly. It ends well, but not well, because it continues to go. Um, the manga continues, but there is a rumor that it's supposed to be coming back to anime, similar to Bleach. Bleach is supposed to be coming back too, so yay for that.
Oh, God.
Um, and then Attack on Titan, Levi versus Kenny, just
Yes.
a spectacular fight. The animation ramps up really well, and it's one of those things where like similar to King Bradley, where this dude is laying waste to everybody left and right, and
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. It's
Which
it's
fight, though? Which Kenny versus Levi fight?
the first one where he's killing his
Yeah.
friends on top of the roof. Like they're
Yeah.
they're they're basically staked out, getting ready to pounce on some bad guys, and he's like, mm
Yeah.
and
Nope.
just lets loose, and
Nope.
yeah, he kills multiple people. People I didn't, and that's the thing about Attack on Titan. Like you don't expect certain people to die the way that they
Yo.
do. And it hits really hard, and this is all before the credits, mind you.
I
Um,
know.
and then they go into their fight. Awesome. They fight more than once. All of them are great, but the first time,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I wasn't ready. I was not
No one,
ready.
no one was ready. I mean, unless you had read the manga, no one was ready. Mind you, I read the manga, but I still wasn't ready. I still was not ready. I'm telling you, I wasn't ready.
Yeah, is whew. So and moving on, we also had a section called boss fights for video games that we're gonna kind of go through a little bit quickly because we are running a little bit out of time. We're trying to
Mhm.
keep things a little shorter than the 2 hour span, from unless something big happens. But aside from
Right.
that, we kind of want to keep it short, keep it moving. So um, toughest boss fights, these aren't the toughest necessarily in gaming. These were the tough ones for me. The first one was Mike Tyson Punch Out Mike Tyson. Uh, Very difficult fight.
Yeah.
In order to hit him, he has a tell where he blinks, and right when he blinks, I believe is when you're supposed to hit him. If I'm getting that wrong, I never beat him, so my bad. But uh,
Ah!
each of the each of the boxers have a tell, right? And so
Yeah.
that's when you're supposed to attack, then we're supposed to dodge. And Mike Tyson, like, blocking is not an option. You need to be able to dodge all of his attacks. And I think the number of times he blinks is the number of times he's gonna punch. And he can knock you out with one punch. Like this, it's just crazy, right? Um, the next one is Ninja Gaiden Black Alma. Alma is a beast.
Mhm.
She's actually easy nowadays, but back in the day when she first came out, she was difficult because she was very fast. She has multiple attacks. She throws pillars at you for crying out loud, giant
Ow.
size, flying around the screen. And as a ninja, you're supposed to try to get in and hit her with your sword or whatever. But she moves really fast. She also has the ability to grab you out of your attack and slam you into the ground. It was very frustrating fighting her. And then also she has an ultimate form that you fight where she summons minions and does all this extra stuff. So she's always a difficult fight.
Yeah.
Um,
Sounds like a
Mega,
beat.
yeah, she is a B. uh, Mega Man and Bass, Dr. Wily, uh, certain using certain weapons against him made it a little bit easier, but the fact that he could spawn in different places um, made it tough, especially if you picked, I want to say Bass over Mega Man,
Hmm.
because their abilities are slightly different. And he was just, he's one of the bosses that has multiple phases, and his last phase is one that always got me because it was one of those things where like you would die, like if you died and you didn't know his pattern, you had to go through all this crap to get back to him, and or just to get back to that phase. And each time you die, you lose. Like if you were using special weapons, you lose that ammo for the next fight. So it made it even more difficult. And you can only hit him in certain places. So yeah, he was actually tough. Um, to beat towards the end of the game. Um, Next up is Blue Dragon, and these secret fights, because Square Enix loves to do secret fights,
Mm.
and um, the guys who made Blue Dragon came from Square. They left and kind of made their own company, so they have secret fights as well. The Gold Mecha Robo and King Pooh. Which is he's not an actual poo. He's actually a snake that's coiled up to look like poo.
Yep.
Um, Super strong characters, even with like maxed out, you know, heroes and items that's supposed to prevent instant death. They are ridiculously tough. King Robo has multiple abilities that can kill your entire squad in one blast. So fun times. And
God.
the the last one was Super Mario RPG Kulix. He is a secret boss. Super Mario RPG was developed by Square, so but it's all Mario themed, obviously. But this particular boss is based on Final Fantasy. He's not actually in the other Final Fantasy games, but he's drawn in a way and he's pulled from that lore. So, yeah, super tough boss. Is you're not just fighting him. He actually summons these crystals, and each crystal represents a different element. Fire, ice, that sort of thing. They all can attack individually. They all have different life bars. Combine their life bar, if you were to take them all out as opposed to just him, is bigger than everybody else in the game. Um, Tough fight if you don't know what you're doing. Like you're going to die. Just putting it out there. Um, I would rather fight the final boss than fight this guy.
Wow.
Uh, so yeah, he's he's a tough cookie.
Sometimes you just gotta hand over the controller.
And the reward is okay-ish, but if you could beat the final boss, I'm like, I don't really need it. But it's
Yeah.
kind of more so bragging rights if you do beat him. Similar to, I mean, you do get stuff for beating King Pooh and the Gold Mecha Robo, but it's not because they're secret. It's obviously not necessary. It's cool, but whatever.
Um, the only fight that I have on my list for most difficult is boss fights, because I just need to preface this, anybody listening, that I don't typically get to the boss. I don't beat games typically. I mean, like I beat Tomb Raider, the reboot, but I don't
Right?
actually think the boss was hard. So I'm not putting that down. I think it was more hard getting there, just like getting used to the game and all this other stupid stuff that happened in that game. But yeah, I didn't feel like the end boss was actually hard. Maybe anyway, moving on. Shantytown was hard, okay? Shantytown. That's what was hard. So
Yeah.
my most difficult boss fight was Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And you know how like it's like more than one boss, I guess you fight it and then it turns into something else. So I just have a quick story about when I beat it. I do believe this was the first time I ever beat it. Now, I've mentioned before on Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is like one of my favorite games ever. And I love Rogue because Rogue is like my favorite X-Men, Rogue and Storm and Gambit. Anyway,
Right.
moving on. So Rogue, I used Cable and Rogue, and I don't know who else. It was who I don't know. It was probably Gambit. It was somebody else, but they died. They were no use to me. They died. Who cares about them? They suck. Cable. You need Cable to beat the final boss. You cannot beat the final boss without Cable. Anybody else who has, I dare you to at me. Write something in the comments because I never did, but I'm also not really good at video games. So anywho, I used Cable. I shot his gun. You know how Cable turns around and it's like a back shot and he's like shooting and
Yeah.
you see his back and all his muscles. Okay, Cable, trying to pick people up in a video game. Rude. And so he's sitting there shooting, and the next thing I know, Cable's dead. And I'm like, how is this happening? Because Rogue comes back, and Rogue only has like 0% life. Like for real, she's on 0.001 micron, like coronavirus size life left. And then next thing you know, she just like punches. I don't know. I don't know how to play the game. Like I don't even know I don't know how to punch. I don't know how to flip. I just press buttons. And next thing I know, I guess I hit up and A at the same time, and she did an uppercut, and the boss died. And at the end of Marvel vs. Capcom, they freeze the frame. like if you beat the person, like they freeze the frame in that position. You don't like
Right.
follow through. It's just like a freeze. And so there's like Rogue in her outline doing an uppercut. I was like, that's the most awesome way to win. That is burned into my memory. That happened when I was like 19 years old. I'm 100 now. That was a long time ago. And I just want to say like that's the hardest, but I remember being sweaty. I was by myself, nobody was home, and I don't typically like playing video games by myself because sometimes they scare me and stuff. But point is, I beat the boss finally after a million tries, and I beat it with my favorite character who's no longer part of the game. And that's all I have to say about that.
That fight was crazy because he doesn't. His name is Abyss, and he
Yes,
starts out as like a dude in armor, and
yes,
then when you beat that part, he gets he turns into green, like slimy version,
yeah,
and then after that, he turns into a red version
yes,
where
the
he's
red
like
one.
giant. He reminds me of Venom a little bit,
Yeah,
or Carnage, and so like it's a three-pronged fight, because you have three characters, so to kind of make it fair, they do that. And it was one of those things where like I beat the second one. I was like, okay, what's next? And the whole screen turns red, and I'm like, oh
yes,
gosh,
I got
what have I
scared.
got? Yeah, I was like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah,
uh, so
totally.
yeah, that definitely a cool boss fight. Definitely cool.
Yeah.
Um, so that is it for this episode. I wanted to say some more stuff. We had some more stuff to talk about, but it's kind of running. We're past an hour now, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. But thanks for sticking with us and listening to the whole show. If you
Mhm.
have any comments, please comment about your favorite boss fights or your favorite fights in anime, and what you think we should have had or shouldn't have had in the
Mhm.
show. Definitely subscribe and hit that notification bell, and feel free to follow us on Twitter. You can follow the website at U_F_G. You can follow me on Twitter at KennyUFG and on Instagram now. Um, and you can follow Tess at MessyTessie_Bakes on Instagram. And
I'm not interesting. You probably should not follow me. I don't post anything.
it'll be cool just to follow. Uh, but yeah, like definitely, and basically, you know, talk to us about what you thought. For the most part, I've gotten like a thumbs up for the cast, but no one's really said what they want to hear, if they want to hear more of specific topics and things of that nature. So that's what I'm kind of looking for, because we have a laundry list of things we want to talk about, but we also want to know what you're interested in. So please leave a comment, um, down below, and let us know. But beyond that, definitely go check out the website, UnitedFrontGaming.com, for all the good stuff, in terms of news, editorials, reviews, previews, and all that good stuff. Like I said about Assassin's Creed, the new trailer is up there. Destroy All Humans is up there, and our live of Street Fighter. I'm sorry, Street Fighter Streets of Rage 4. And our review will be going up there shortly as well. So, yep, definitely check that out.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for sticking with us. We hope to see you next week. Have a wonderful night. Stay virus free. Wash your hands. Don't cough on people. Wear a mask. Wear some gloves. Stay safe is the point. Social distance. We love you. Have a good night. Bye bye.